Welcome to Beyond Business Limits podcast. My name is Samuel Petko and I'm your host. I'm a business owner and a business investor, and through my two companies, Scale Up Outsourcing Limited and Prosperitas Investment Group Limited, I bring resources and solutions to those who want to accelerate their growth. If you want to see our future interviews and videos, hints and tips in running a business, subscribe to this channel. So don't forget. Today, I have a special guest, John Kettley, who is a serial entrepreneur, a private investor, M&A specialist, founder of Consortiat Group, a business mentor, just to name a few of his activities. So welcome to our podcast, John.
Thank you, Samuel. I really appreciate you inviting me along to have a chat and see what we can do to share a bit of the knowledge.
Great. So if we can start with what you actually do, because I mentioned few activities, but if you can put it in some nice, framework, what you do, and to give a better idea for the people watching.
I'll probably share with you a bit of the journey, because that will kind of explain what I do today and why we do it and what we do with. So I was very fortunate to have come into the world of business at a very young age, having started my first business when I was 16 and was very fortunate, sold that by the time I was 18. So that very, very early experience of building a very, very small business, it was a bicycle shop. And this was back in around 1981, something like that. And I'd spotted a gap in the market. It was around the time that mountain bikes came into existence, and most of the cycle shops weren't focusing on mountain bikes at all. They were this new thing. Well, of course, being a youngster, and like all youngsters, you very quickly pick up on something that's different. So that's what we did. We opened up a mountain bike shop. We built it up fairly quickly. And so wind forward over the next kind of almost 3 decades, 3 decades really, what I discovered was I really enjoyed seeing a hole in the market, seeing that everyone else, i.e. the competitors, are looking slightly to the left or the right. And then I would take advantage of that hole in the market, if you like, build a company, and then sell the company on. So I was very fortunate, took somewhat of an early retirement back in 2006, took a bit of time out, and then really fell into turning companies around, because the phone was ringing just with people that I knew that were in trouble at that time. That 2008, 9, 10 was a very dark time for a lot of people in small businesses. So in falling into that, not really on purpose, it was really just a sequence of events. What I noticed fairly quickly was that most business owners, and one guy had a print company, and another character it was a motorcycle company, and etc., all sorts of different companies. And what I noticed fairly quickly is that most business owners are very good at what they do. They're great software developers or IT people, or motorcycle mechanics or manufacturers of whatever that may be. They know that. That's how they built the business. But what they're not so good at is really building a wealthy business. And a wealthy business comes from really looking at the business on purpose and saying that what they're trying to do is build a lifestyle business for most people that achieves them a certain work-life balance. But I guess the universal problem and the universal reason why most small businesses don't ever achieve their true potential is because the business owner is going from Tuesday to Thursday to the following month and year doing stuff. Every day they wake up and they've got a lot of stuff to do. So because they've got a lot of stuff to do, they're answering customers' demands and looking after staff and what have you, that they're absorbed with the engine of the business. So it becomes encompassing. So of course, what they don't do is they're not working to a master plan. They're not reverse engineering the success they want. They're just building a company, which is risky. So this realization kind of came to me that, over the last X number of decades, I'd always reverse engineered the outcome so that if we had a challenge, something in the marketplace or something internally, we would just overcome the challenge by thinking about it very pragmatically, because it was an obstacle to getting to a specific ultimate target. So that kind of led me to fall into mentoring business owners and helping them to just see a bigger vision of, and almost really reminding them of what it is they set the business up for in the first place, which for a lot of business owners, they kind of forget that, because if you think about it, on day one, you have this vision in your mind of, I'm going to start this business, whatever it may be, and I'm going to build it, and it's going to do X and it's going to do Y, and they've got a plan. It's just that within kind of 6 to 12 months, they've fallen onto the hamster wheel of doing stuff. And because they're on that hamster wheel, as the business grows, often becomes a bigger and bigger hamster wheel, and they're reacting to things, not really doing it on purpose, as it were. So that realization was why I then founded something called the Sales Masters Guild, which was to teach business owners Business 101, which is how you build a business that creates wealth. And when I talk about how you build a business that creates wealth, a lot of people hear the word wealth and they kind of think that that's about having lots and lots and lots of money. And of course, that is a truism. But wealth to me is that you have a certain lifestyle. You have a balance between working, and you have a balance between your personal life, time you spend with family and friends. So for a lot of business owners, and I'm going to venture that this is probably 70-80% of business owners, their work-life balance is really off. They literally eat, drink, think their business 24/7, 365, because they are on that hamster wheel of trying to earn enough money to pay all the bills. And so as soon as they kind of get to the latter stages of a month, the 25th, 26th, and they've got the rent, the rates, and the mortgage and everything else cleared, they have this little sigh of relief, as it were. They soften, and they're not driving the business. So anyway, to finish off my little story, as it were, that kind of led me into taking positions in companies. So from mentoring business owners on how to build that business so that it was what it was always meant to be, I then started working with more and more business owners that were at the back end of their business life, where they're looking at exiting their business over the next 2 or 3 years. And what I then discovered is when you start talking to people that have had a business maybe 10, 20, even 30 years, most of them they haven't had a plan for the business. They haven't got a plan for selling the business, whether it's succession or whatever it is. And quite honestly, most business owners don't own the business, i.e. it doesn't work without them. So hence I kind of moved into working with business owners that are looking to exit. And then some of those businesses we've actually bought outright. So to come to your initial question, I mentor some business owners. I take positions in companies, we buy companies, we build them up, and we sell them on. So at my stage of the game, I'm in my 7th decade now, early 60s, that's really what I do. Is I buy businesses, build them up, and sell them on, and mentor business owners who are at various stages, not always just at the end of their story. We're working with 4 different business owners at the moment in very different sectors that are in the mid part of their journey, where they've got it to a level and they're trying to get it above that level, but it's like a glass ceiling they just can't quite get through. That I enjoy that side of it. It's like a Rubik's cube.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for explaining. I made few notes, so very, very good points you raised. So my additional question to you would be, how do you spot the gap in the market? Because you explained with your mountain bike shop, yes, you've seen the gap in the market. So how do you, in the current day and age, how do you keep on top of the market or, the industry?
Yeah, do you know what? That's a really great question, Sam, because it's something that I've kind of always done, which is I have a very peripheral view. I've got quite a thirsty mind to understand what's happening on the wider landscape, on the business landscape. And I think that is actually something that, dare I say it, the vast majority of business owners don't do. What the vast majority do is they're focusing on the business and what's happening in front of them, and they can kind of see what's happening just around their arena. So if you was say you was manufacturing a product, they'll know what their kind of close competitors are doing, and they'll have an understanding from customers of, their demands are and what they need and what have you, but they're not keeping a peripheral view of what's coming down the track. So pretty much on a daily basis, I'm hoovering up, even today, I guess it's a lifelong habit, if you like. I'm hoovering up what's happening on the wider landscape. How is what's happening with Putin affecting the eastern part of Europe? How is what's happening in China affecting the products that are coming out from that part of the world and going to the rest of the world? So where, for example, we see the Houthis were getting pretty upset and therefore upsetting the shipping lanes, that immediately told me that we're going to have a rise in inflation probably 3 or 5 months down the line, because the increase in shipping costs to go around the Cape is obviously going to come on to the customers. And then if you look at what's happening on AI, you can see that AI is going to have a really huge effect on software development. So Silicon Valley and mainly India, which is where most of the really smart guys come from for software development, that their whole sector is going to take a big hit. So if you're doing anything with a SaaS product or software, you can see that 8 months, 12 months down the track, it's going to be a different landscape. If you go back to last year, you could see that in this country, in the UK, the incumbent government were making so many mistakes, having so much infighting. It was clear that they were not going to win when the election eventually came round. And then if you looked at the other team, the red team in this particular case, you can see that they really didn't have a solid plan of action. What they were doing was tactically trying to win an election, but not with anything that the population could grip on and say, look, we really, really want them. And so, of course, what happened was we had the lowest turnout, and the government, whilst they may have won hundreds and hundreds of seats, that was with the lowest support for decades and decades. So what it actually means is that they've now got carte blanche to put in lots and lots of tax raises. Now, the tax raises is going to make both the SMEs and the larger companies really edgy. So we're going to see a soft marketplace for the next 3 to 4 months until we see the full impact of what they're going to do from taxes. So if they hit the business owners with business relief, capital gains, and all the rest of it, you're going to see a lot of people move out of the country. As they move out of the country, that has effect on marketplaces. So what I'm sharing with you is having a peripheral view of the greater economies of the world and the greater economies that surround certain sectors kind of tells you what's going to happen 6 and 9 months down the track, which means that you can be a lot more learned in your decisions of what you're doing. So if, for example, you were a supplier to Network Rail here in the United Kingdom, Network Rail give their a 5-year tranche of work and their budgets for 5 years, and that's only 6 months old. They put them out in 5-year terms. But now the government's come in and said they're going to do X, Y, Z to do with British Rail or the rail network. So straight away, if you're a supplier to the network where you thought X, Y, and Z was going to happen, I think you need to be a little worried and cautious and pull in the reins until you see what those guys are doing over the next 6 months, which means the growth and hiring people, etc., into the business needs to have a very different strategy than if they weren't upsetting that karma. So I think peripheral vision from the context that I've just shared is crucial, regardless of what sector you're in. It's having that much wider view of where is the ball going to, what's affecting where the ball's going to. And from that, we can become much more shrewd and educated in the decisions that we make in any kind of business.
Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting to see that general overview of the economy. And as you said, many many business owners who are starting small without any external investment. They just want to create a lifestyle business. And yeah, I was with our first business, I was the same. So we just wanted to have a nice income. We set up a language school in 2011 and it was growing. But as you explained, yeah, at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, rates, rents, lease, payments, and so on. So it was not the lifestyle we were expecting in those early years.
Yes,
But
and of course the thing is, Sam, as you know, having had that experience firsthand, and I've had that on, all through my career, where you think you know what's going to happen, and then something comes out of left field. Let that be a change in government, or the economy shrinks, or the banking community, or all things that you think are unconnected to your own world. When that happens, eventually, after a while, you think, I really must keep a wider spectrum here, because we just don't know what we don't know as we're building it.
Yeah, and I can see the same even these days because I have a lot of meetings with small businesses, and usually the owners, they either lack the expertise or skills or time or basically the systems. And that's what we do with our team at Scalable Outsourcing. We try to bring that solution to the table, especially if they don't have enough resources to employ more people. So utilize outsourcing or BPO, business process outsourcing, and we bring that solution with an affordable price. Even today, I spoke to one or two people who are building their pipeline, but when they start to deliver for the client, then there is no one to actually look after the pipeline. So they either chase the new clients or they deliver to the existing clients, and they can't do both. And that seems to be quite common, especially with people I speak to, and those are quite small businesses.
Yes, I mean, one thing that I have seen over the years is that to go from ground zero to a turnover of 500,000 is a really steep hill to get from zero to 500,000 in turnover. Okay. And so what you see is a lot of companies will get to, 200,000, 400,000, maybe 600,000 in turnover, and they kind of sit there for many, many years. And they'll either sit there almost in perpetuity, or they then make that break and then they'll get to the 7-figure mark. And again, that's another ledge, if you like. And the reason that happens is that when you're building a business, you never have any money. You don't earn any money building a business because everything's going back into the hopper, as it were, because you're now so busy, you need to hire another admin person. Then you're so busy, you need another, person who's doing delivery, manufacturing, whatever that may be. So you're buying equipment, you're financing X, Y, and Z. So everything's going back into the hopper, which is why you don't tend to earn any money. And it's only really when that business gets to kind of $1 million plus do the business owners themselves start to have a decent salary, because up until that point, they haven't had a decent salary. They've forgone that salary to pay for the business building and building and building. So I think that one of the big challenges is that you don't need a certificate to start a business. Anyone can start a business. And I mean, that's the beauty of the environment we live in, the country that we live in the Western world. But that in of itself is a problem, because most people don't realize that while you're growing a business, you don't earn any money, number one. Number two is you need to hire people, and hiring people is something that a lot of business owners may not have done before. So they hire the wrong people, then they have to release them and get other people, and it's a massive learning curve in building the business. And even when you get up over that million and you get to 5 million in turnover, that then becomes a very, very different, structure, a very different feel to it. And quite often the people that you have in the business at 500K, 800,000 pounds are just not the people that you need when you run a 5 million pound, dollar, euro turnover company. And of course, when you get to 20 million, all of a sudden it's becoming more of a corporate entity. So it needs different structures in it. It needs people that understand how to operate at that level. And these are all things that are challenging for companies and businesses, which is why you quite often see, 10-year-old companies, 20-year-old companies that still don't have the processes in place to be efficient, productive, and of course profitable. And it's, Sam, you're very similar to me in that you've segued now more into the mergers and acquisitions, buying companies, but bringing them in. So you'll have seen, just as I have, Sam, that it's surprising how many businesses that we look at where they don't have the processes in, they don't have the financial reporting, they don't have the architecture for a business that can make money, that can grow. And so, of course, that's what we bring to the table quite often is coming in with our little helicopter overlooking the business, and bless them, the business owner quite often thinks, well, no, I've got a great business because it kind of works for them. And then you and I come in, we look at the thing, we go, my God, you've done well to get it to where it is. But if you just did, X, Y, Z, A, B, and C, this could be a cracking little business, but we need to rebuild the architecture to it.
Yeah, well, definitely, as you explained, it's one process to get to, let's say, £500,000 turnover, and then it requires different skill sets, maybe different systems in place to get higher. I think you mentioned that usually the glass ceiling is the 1 million or 2 million turnover.
For different people, Sam, in that some people their glass ceiling is X number of 100,000, for others it's 1 million. For a lot of people it's million. I've spoken to 40, 50 companies in the last 2 years that are sitting on that 1.2, 1.3, and they've been there for years. And forgive the terminology, but they're what I call zombie businesses, in that if you look at the last kind of 3, 4, 5 years, you can tell it's a zombie business because it's going along plus or minus 10%, or even if it's growing in turnover, you look at the profit, which is the most important thing, and that profit line is plus or minus 10%, which in real terms, because of inflation, means it is actually going backwards, because inflation means it should be traveling above inflation, which for a lot of companies, unfortunately, they do not.
Okay, yes. And yeah, as you mentioned, I didn't mention it in the introduction, but we have some overlapping activities. And so you set up Consortiat, you are the founder of Consortiat, where I'm an associate member, and I set up a Prosperitas Investment Group, where you are on the advisory board. So we have something in common, which is the mergers and acquisitions. And we see it quite often that businesses, especially the lifestyle businesses, are not prepared for the next stage. And then what happens? Then usually those businesses close down because there is no one to buy them.
100%. I think the danger for lifestyle businesses is that the businesses are dependent on the business owner, who quite often wears 3, 4, 5 caps. And without the business owner there, the sales don't continue because the relationships with the customers are with the business owner. And the finances, I'll give you one example, an unfortunate example. There was a manufacturer in Los Angeles, and lovely little business. It was a bespoke manufacturer to the helicopter industry and a number of other marine clients and what have you. And they made very, very specialist parts to do with fuel systems and what have you. The owner was 49, run the business, took all of the decisions. Everyone came to him for a decision on, would we manufacture this? Would we spend that? Would we hire this guy? This character was literally the center of his own business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he died unexpectedly. And when he died unexpectedly, there was nobody in the organization that was able to pick up what he was doing. So that company went into free fall, and his widow had to desperately search out to find an interim director to come in and keep the company afloat, which, in fairness to the chap, I know the chap very, very well, actually, who was the interim managing director of the company. Now, very, very smart guy, very, very connected, but had to learn and find all of these things in the closet, so to speak, of how to keep the company running. The guy was robbing Peter to pay Paul, in terms of, he'd take monies from this one and put it in and pay that, invoice off, etc., etc. So that, unfortunately, is more common than you think, or you might know, is that business owners are carrying so much in their mind, it's not written down, and it's dangerous, to the whole business and their families, ultimately. Now, no business owner does that consciously. It just happens over a period of years. But again, this is where, I've been fortunate to have different mentors over the years that have said, look, John, have you done X? And John, why are you doing that over there? And they're holding me to account, making me avoid the hamster wheel trap of getting lost in doing stuff. And though I say to myself, I'm pretty good at keeping an eye on that peripheral view, as I say, but still human. So still make mistakes. And this is where I think having a mentor, if you're running a business, is crucial, because they're pulling us up on a monthly basis and saying to us exactly as I said, why have you done this? Or what's the thinking behind that decision? And why haven't you done X that you've been talking about for the last 3 months? You keep talking about it, but you're not doing it. It's like, oh, damn, yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's that accountability is very important, and I wish I had it in the early years because myself, I was working in the business, and being busy 24/7 doesn't help on long term. It helps short term, but when one person is doing everything, then doesn't build a business. It can make money, but it doesn't build a business. And now these days, I see the same with other businesses. So what I'm educating others is when I speak to startup companies or already small established businesses, but maybe they were running for a year or two, but their turnover is still somewhere around maybe 100,000. So it's that piece of advice. Well, you need to duplicate yourself. You need to basically find the right people and delegate, because how long you can be doing all these things by yourself? So it's that important part of hiring and delegation.
Yeah, 100%. It's a little bit like that book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. He talks exactly about this conundrum. And I mean, that's a great book. I think that should be mandatory reading for all people that are in business to read the E-Myth, because we're all doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. There's a lot of knowledge that we individually don't have, which is why personally I read a lot of books to pull out little things that are a jog. So like the E-Myth or Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Big Five for Life by John Strzelecki, all crucial books that give you that different perspective about the business and helping you to kind of have that helicopter view of your own business and your own world and where you're going.
Yeah. And also, I want to add, because I heard few, probably a lot of people heard them, few quotes about, hiring people. And for example, one said, I don't know who said it, but one of them is learn to hire fast, but fire faster. Because when people start hiring, then suddenly they realize, oh, this might not be the right person, but they don't make the other decision to let go. And then they are stuck with the person who is not the right fit. The person might not have the right work etiquette or, might not be pulling the weight. So that's why I decided to set up an outsourcing business to actually show business owners that, it can be a painless process to actually hire someone. If it doesn't work, they can just cancel the contract. They don't need to deal with, HR and contracts and this kind of compliance when it comes to hiring people. So I can see that outsourcing as a business model, it's more and more, favorable, or more, it's becoming the main driving force, if I should call it this way, that even the smaller companies are realizing, okay, if I need something to be done, then probably I just hire someone externally.
Yes, indeed. And I think, the funny thing is, I think more and more companies would do that if the business owner stopped for a moment and thought about, there's an exercise that I give to everyone that I work with, which is, and in the exercises, I get them to list down, create 3 columns, £10 tasks, £100 tasks, and £1,000 tasks. And then I encourage them to write down every single thing that they do during the course of an average week. And then take what that subject is and drop it into which one of the, whichever pot is most pertinent to that task. And of course, every single time, what most business owners are blown away by is the amount of £10 tasks that they do. Yeah. When of course they should really be focusing on the £1,000 tasks, not even the £100 tasks. But because they don't go through that process, they don't realize, because they've never got the time to think about, well, what's the role of the person that I need? So they can't call up that VA service or outsourcing service and say, right, what I need is X. Because funny enough, I've mentored quite a few outsourced service companies over the years, and what they tell me is that the universal problem they have is they'll get an inquiry from a business owner, but the business owner doesn't really know what they need. They just say, well, I need to get a few parts, but then a part's outsourced only to realize they've got to do a certain amount of work in order to be able to give a brief to the outsourcer for what to do. And because they then think, oh, this sounds like work, then they leave it to one side. So they get in their own catch-22 scenario.
Yeah. And I think now I have a different perspective. And also that's thanks to mergers and acquisitions. Because when I'm talking to any business owner, I'm trying to understand what they want to achieve. Is it a lifestyle business or is it an asset which they want to sell at some point? So that gives me that extra advantage or different perspective of advising them what's the best solution, what they could be doing to improve their business. And I use the same kind of examples, $10 tasks, $100 tasks, $1,000 tasks, and I explain the same thing. Okay, so what are you doing during the day, during the week, which you shouldn't really be doing? What is it you want to delegate, or what is it you think you can't delegate, but it can be done? So it's a lot of this type of conversation at the beginning, because hardly anyone comes forward and say, yeah, I want to grow my business and I need this, and that. So it's usually this type of conversation, like you are explaining what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, and which function you need to make stronger in your company. So for example, these days I speak to a few people we are onboarding as clients, and they want help with sales. And why sales? Because they are good salespeople, but it's the same problem as I explained before. If they are doing the sales for their clients, nobody's taking care of their pipeline. So what is the 10-pound task? Okay, so let's prepare the pipeline. Let's say have someone who is making hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and preparing the meetings for you. And then when you know that those are pre-qualified leads, you take over, and that's your 1,000-pound task.
Yes.
And then they understand, oh, okay, so this is how I can multiply and do what's more important. Yeah, so it really helps to have the general overview, not just about the business, but also about the industry, also having that different perspective, because many people if they are consultants, they consult on one thing. So if they, for example, are sales specialists, they consult on, okay, how to improve the sales. Or if they are marketing agency, they just talk about marketing. But what I like about what you do is you have different set of playbooks. So when you come to a company, and this is what I would like you to explain maybe a little bit more now. So when you come to the company, you are looking at the whole spectrum of problems or situations, and you have various playbooks to address them.
Yeah, so over the years, you pick up things, again, coming back to the earlier part of the conversation of going into other companies and realizing that not everybody thinks or operates in the same way as yourself does. So what I realized as I was speaking with more and more business owners all through that 2010 through to kind of 2020, if you like, that whole 10-year segment, was that most people are not on purpose. Most people have forgotten about the business plan, if they ever even had a business plan on day one. And when you use the word business plan, most people think, well, I don't need one of those because I know what I'm doing. Okay. And I don't need one of those because I don't need to raise finance, because they think it's for finance. So, and that's all true. And if you think about a playbook, the word playbook really came from the sports environment. If you look at American baseball, American football, basketball, they all talk about playbooks. So the playbook is what they do in this scenario and what they do in that scenario. So they work out a number of plays that they'll do. So their strategies is another word for it. So it's a strategy book, playbook, we want to talk that. And funny enough, that's now you've started to really see that here in Europe, as more and more people have took that concept of saying, well, okay, this is the play for this year. This is the play for the next 3 years. And by making it more of a playbook rather than a business plan, it makes it more of a competitive thing in your mind. You're thinking, well, okay, we're looking at this more holistically. We're looking at it in a bigger view. So for me, I've developed over the years a master business playbook that is reverse engineering a specific outcome. Okay. And then within that business playbook, it contains the sales playbook, the marketing playbook, and the financial playbook. So they're subsets, if you like, of the master business playbook. Now, this is why in having a business playbook, it by default makes us look at the bigger picture, at where the ball's going to, what's happening on the landscape, what other factors are going to affect us. So again, if there is, huge turbulence in the Middle East, we know that fuel prices are going to go through the roof. If fuel prices are going to go through the roof, well, then airline prices are going to go up and goods movement is going to go up. So manufacturing costs go up. It's driving inflation. So if that's happening over the next 3 or 4 months, we know what's going to happen 6 months down the track. So having a business playbook that says, if this, then that, if that, then this, is crucial, because now we're working on purpose, because we're reverse engineering a set of milestones. Well, when we hit this milestone, great, now we're focused on the next milestone. If something comes out of left field, it's simply an obstacle to get over or around or under, but one way or t'other, we are going through that obstacle because we're fixated on the next milestone, as it were. So the business playbook maps out who we are as an organization. And I always kind of see it as a circle of subjects. So if you think about starting a company, the very first thing that we have to work out is, okay, what is it that we're setting out to achieve? What are we building? We're building an IT company, or we're building a manufacturer of machinery for X, or whatever that might be. So that's the definitive purpose of the company. The purpose of the company is to manufacture this or provide these types of clients with what it is that we sell. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is, okay, what's our USP? What's the thing that's going to differentiate us from everyone else who sells what's perceived as a similar product or service in the marketplace? And what differentiates us from them? Only when you've got your definitive purpose and you've got your USP can you start to create the brand, because what goes into creating a brand is the ethos, the methodology, the value system, and how we do what we do that comes from the USP and the definitive purpose. Only when you've got your brand and those other elements can you then move to the marketing. So what I'm describing, and there's in total, there's 7 different major steps that go into that circle. And of course, that's why you'll get the marketing playbook that fits within the business playbook, that describes who our ideal clients are, i.e., who are hungry, which entities or individuals are hungry for what it is that we offer or provide. So once we know who they are, then we can start working out what motivates them. So what are the 3 core desires that our ideal customer has? And what's their 3 biggest pains? And then if we fuse solving their 3 biggest pains, nightmares, and giving them their 3 biggest desires, well, that's our offering. So then the offering itself is what we use for marketing. The offering itself, once we've identified what the client avatar is and all of the different avatars that we as a business are going to serve them, and what our individual offer is to those different avatars. A lot of companies make the mistake of having the one offer to cover 4 avatars, and of course it's off. So that's forming part of the marketing playbook, and it's also forming part of the sales playbook. And again, it's how robust and elegant our articulation of our offering is, which determines how successful we will be as a business. So this is where those business playbooks, sales, marketing, financials are crucial to us having our finger on the pulse, to us being able to create the right KPIs, key performance indicators, the metrics that we measure on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis that tells us whether we've got growth or not, where we can spot where we're going off the beaten path 1 degree, 2 degree, and then pull us back on the path. So that's where the business playbooks kind of orientated from my background, and how we've developed them over the last, what's now probably 15 years, in going into other businesses. Because what we've seen pretty vividly early on, and has been punctuated over and over and over again, is that most companies don't have a business playbook. They don't have a marketing playbook. They're ad hoc at the very best at putting out a message. Quite often is vanilla, it's plural, it's not, it doesn't resonate with the customer, as it were. So that's why when we come into a business, we can make a huge difference to its productivity, efficiency, and profitability in such a short period of time, because we're coming in with fresh eyes. We can see what they're 2 inches from their mirror, what they just can't see because they're too close to it. So that's what a playbook is, and that's how we develop them, and that's why they make such a big impact with a company, and how you can really turn a company around very, very quickly, or take an average company that's performing okay and turn that into a really highly profitable company, which in of itself increases dramatically the valuation of a given company.
Okay. Oh, that's good. So you mentioned usually people don't have, or the business owners don't have a clear, it might be vision, or it might be basically the unique selling point. And from that, everything else is linked to it. So it's marketing and sales. And so when you speak to the new clients or business partners, the companies you are going to help or fix, I understand that you are starting from what's their vision, what's their unique selling point. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go to, I'll give you 3 very short, quick examples. If I'm talking to a business owner who is desperate to turn their company around. Now, when I say desperate to turn their company around, it may well be that financially they're approaching the brink of the abyss. Or it may be that they've been hitting off that glass ceiling we were talking about earlier, and they just can't get it through there. It's a nice enough little company. It makes them a reasonable, and they want to turn that reasonable into, they've got a nice wealth creating proper company. So whether it's that character or that character, just by coming in and looking at it almost with a start up lens. So, well, okay, if I had this company and we were starting it from scratch, what would we do? Well, we would work out all of the things that I just shared. And then we'd work out very, very quickly, where are they positioned in the marketplace? Are they a secret that nobody knows because they don't do much marketing? Have they got an offering that genuinely tells prospective clients that they're the go-to people and why they're the go-to people? Do they do any database mining? Do they know what database mining is? So, that's one side of things. And then the other side of things is where not just turning a company around and making it a nice, profitable, well-run company. Then you've got the next character. The next character is wanting to dramatically increase the valuation of the company. Now, when you talk about increasing the valuation of a company, that becomes a much more complex issue, because again, most business owners really don't understand the difference between a business owner's lens and a shareholder's lens. They're very, very different, very different. Business owners really look at the business and they value the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the nights they were awake wondering how they were going to, replace that valuable employee, or deal with the VAT inspection and all the rest of it. Someone who's really trying to build the value of the company, okay, to be a much more valuable company. So of course most don't understand how to do that part of it. Now, if you look at a company's valuation, there's all manner of books on this, and there's different universities teach it in different ways. Now, I've got a very different way of looking at the valuation of a company, because accountants, brokers, and a lot of these so-called advisors will say, oh, well, because you've been in business 30 years, that has a value. Well, it doesn't. And we think you'll get, this huge multiple because they've read it somewhere, and they've heard somewhere on the grapevine that somebody somewhere got this 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 times multiple. When the truth of the matter is that most companies that make under 2 or 3 million of profit are a multiple of 2 or 3, not 6 or 7. Okay, there are extenuating circumstances to that, but my experience of the last 4 decades of building businesses to selling companies and buying companies in over the last kind of 4 or 5 years is that when you look at that business, it's not worth what most business owners think. I mean, 90% of business owners I've spoken to in the last 15 years want £10 for a fiver. And I understand it. I understand it. Everyone wants more than it's worth. Okay. You want more for your house than a buyer's prepared to sell. You want more for your vehicle than someone's prepared to sell. With a business, it's a different proposition to a house or a vehicle, even if it's a high level vehicle. It's about what the buyer perceives as important, not what the accountant thinks, not what the broker thinks. It's worth what someone will pay for it. And if a business owner, and I see this all the time, business owner go, well, I want this amount of money. And that's fine, but we need to work out what the difference is between what it's really worth and what they want. Because again, if they want £1 million for their £500,000 business, or they want 5 million for their £2 million business, it's not a problem. You just have to get a strategy to traverse the gap between what they want, what they think it's worth, and what it's really worth. And so quite often, Sam, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself in what you do, is you're quite often educating a business owner to what the real world is about. You're educating the business owner as to what it's really worth and what they really have to do in order to achieve the goal that they have for themselves and their families.
Yeah, definitely, that's true. The valuations, it's coming back to what business they want to build. And many times people just want to have a nice income, but the priorities change. In the next 10 years, suddenly they haven't built a business, they build a nice income and they want to sell it. And that's where the problem starts, because as you pointed out, it's what someone is willing to offer and pay rather than what the valuation on the paper is.
100%, 100%. You know, funny enough, I'll give you just two little examples. One of them is actually a really good friend of mine, and he's got a business and he's got the property that the business is in. And the property also has a retail shop and it has an apartment above the retail shop. And his core business is at the back of these buildings. And I said to him over the weekend, he said, I'm thinking of, selling up now. I'm going to sell up maybe in the next year, 18 months. And I've known, he's a friend of mine. I've known him for 40 odd years, nearly 50 years, in fact. And I said, so tell me, what's so-and-so paying for the rent in the front shop? He said, he's paying, it was half, if not, a third of what it should be. And I asked him what the rent that was being paid by the person who was renting the apartment. And again, it was about half to a third of what the going rate is. And I said to him, well, why are you doing that? I said, when's the last time you put the rent up? He said, well, I haven't put the rent up for 20 years. I said, well, that's why it's a third. He said, yeah, but I don't want to upset them. And I mean, he's a lovely guy, but he's leaving so much money on the table because that's how he's always been. And then I'll talk to another character who is always busy. And then when I went to his business, he's the only one who's really busy because the people in his factory aren't. And you think, well, you're leaving a lot of money on the table that way. So yeah. And that is the difficult thing, is to not burst the bubble, but to educate someone with reality when they are operating in their own little bubble. And it's not that we want to burst the bubble, but we need them to see with fresh eyes. And so again, coming back to what we were sharing earlier about educating, I really do see myself more of a teacher than ever, because I'm just teaching people how it really works, how you really build a business that creates wealth, and how you really do certain things. And, I often signpost people and say, well, look, read this book or have a look at this course. It's not just me saying it. I'm trying to help other people, pointing them in other directions. I mean, as you know, Sam, I've written a book that's on Kindle and Audible and etc. And I've produced courses and I've done a lot of trainings and teachings over the years that I get good satisfaction out of seeing people learn. But it still stuns me at how many people that I've trained over the years that you talk to them, a month afterwards, oh yeah, it's brilliant, I'm using this, that, and the other technique. And then you'll bump into them 6 months later and you'll ask them to go, yeah, well, I haven't had time. You think, oh, right. So you've gone right back to where you were before and you're not focusing on those learnings. And I always equate it a bit to learning a language. It's like I lived in Germany for quite a number of years and was reasonably fluent in Germany, but I left Germany in 1989, because that's when the Berlin Wall came down. And now, could I have a conversation in Germany? I could probably order a beer.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't use it, you lose it. Yes.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, when you were talking now about, the busy owner in the factory, I had a meeting with someone from our network who is building a 60 million pound group. And he said something interesting. He said, if you spend more than 1 hour a week in the business, it's a distressed business. So yeah, based on
See,
this
now that
criteria,
was those words from the words from a mouth who knows.
yes, yeah. So based on his criteria, every business is distressed, and that's how he treats it. So when he invests, he basically treats it like a distressed business. And I think 99% of business owners don't realize that they shouldn't be the main man or main person
Absolutely.
to run
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so before we finish, I would like to ask you if you can summarize the main pain points or the main problems you come across when you speak to new clients or new businesses, and what people should be mindful of when they are either starting or already running a business.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that becomes clear very, very quickly when I'm having a conversation with a business owner, let that be that they're in trouble, let that be that they want to take it to the next level, let that be that they want to exit it, is the number one thing that comes across very, very quickly is that they do not have a clear vision of what they really, really want. They'll say, oh, well, I want this, that, but it's not visceral. It's not bang, bang, bang. This is what I want to achieve. So that's number one. Number two, it becomes very, very clear. They don't know what to do next. They don't know what their next move should be. So they'll have lots of opinions, that's empirical opinions based on the past. And most people have a good, strong ego. I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that and I don't want to do. And they're very, very good at telling you what they don't want to do. Not so good at telling you what they want, what they really want. So for me, it's always trying to tease out of a person what they really want. In other words, a series of questions whereby at the end of it, I can generally see in their eyes, they're starting to connect the dots. Because as an example, I might say, well, look, what is it you ultimately really want? How does life look for you in 3 years' time? Their default answer tends to be, and their eyes are looking in the air because they're searching in their mind for what it might be. And it normally takes me about another 5 or 6 questions to tighten the conversation to say, no, it's 3 years' time. It is now 2028, 2029. Are you still in the business? Are you out of the business? If you're out of the business, what are you doing? Are you completely retired and you go fishing a lot? Or riding motorcycles? Are you okay? And then what we're trying to tease out of them and help them to do is get that visceral vision in their mind. Once you get that, it starts dropping into place, because I cannot help someone until I know what they want. And 9 times out of 10, they don't know what they want. So that's always the first challenge, obstacle thing to do, is to help someone to gain that clarity and to gain clarity of what the next move must be. That generally is around getting a playbook, working a plan out to reverse engineer what it is they say that they want in a nutshell. Then when you deep dive into the business itself, as I say, making money is actually pretty simple. Building a business that makes money is, again, pretty simple. The obstacles to doing that is the plan of action. The obstacles to doing that is not having the right people on board. Yeah. And it's a mindset thing. So within a company, that people talk about a business culture. I don't think most people realize how important that is. If you've got a culture where everybody is really working to the better outcome of the company because they're really enjoying being in the company, that's a company that's going to go on to do great things. When there's a culture in there where people are a bit more apathetic, that's never going to make it. So again, it comes back to the mindset of the business owner. It comes back to the clarity of the business owner, and it comes back to the playbook, the master plan. So you need those three components in place to be able to help anybody. So it's personal business development, if you like, to achieve what they want. Generally speaking, what I've learned over the last 15 years, I can probably half the journey time of them doing it on their own. Not because of any other reason than most people don't know what to do next, in a nutshell.
Good. Well, that's very helpful. And it definitely is a lot of added value for anyone who is running a business, just to, if they are skipping through the video, at least to hear this piece of advice,
Yeah.
to actually know how the business should be structured, set up, and run. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
So, as I said, it was very good to have you on this podcast, and I'm very happy that we could have this conversation. In the description of this video, we will put some links and comments and information how to get in contact with you, John, or with me. As I said, we collaborate on few things. So I'm associated in your investment group, and you are also sitting on the board in my group. So if there is a business who is watching and exploring how to accelerate their growth or how to fix their company, we are open to have the initial discussion and see if we are the right fit. And yeah, that would be all from me for today. And if you want to see and watch our future videos and interviews and get some insights and hints and tips about how to run a business, a successful business, subscribe to this channel. So thank you very much again, John. And yeah,
Thank you, Sam.
have a nice